Welcome to Fringe Element here on the 440 Sports Network. My name is Braden Gall, and you can follow me on Twitter at Braden Gall.
Mine's Erin Dugan. You can follow me on Twitter at the Erin Dugan or Instagram, Erin_Dugan.
My name is Stephen Godfrey. You can reach me at 38 Godfrey on. You just plug it into any social media network. If it's on there, it's on there. Just surprise yourself.
You're so cohesive.
It's two. So, and then I quit everything else. So
that's fair.
We will have a Godfrey coaching update coming up a little bit later on in the show. How should people be consuming National Signing Day? We've got some advice, some team stats and rankings for everybody out there. We'll talk Cruton, I guess, as best we can, or as much as we want to. A lot of coaching news as far as coordinators leaving. Georgia's lost somebody. Texas A&M has lost somebody. We'll get into a lot of that as well. What's going on with Auburn as quarterbacks are transferring all across the SEC? A lot of other news in quarterbacks as Matt Corral is gone. Hendon Hooker is coming back. We'll get to all of that, what that means as well. And, of course, much to Stephen's chagrin, Aaron, we will discuss the Heisman Trophy for a moment or two at the front end, and I'll give you my ballot. However, before we do that, Erin Dugan, Fringe Element, is brought to you by
Jaspers, the true meaning of Christmas.
All right.
Okay.
Anyways,
see
you guys at church on Sunday.
I feel like last week's hard to top.
Yeah.
You've done like 4 different types of poem.
The dirty limerick was good.
The limerick about Brian. There was a limerick about Brian Kelly. What's the one where you do the first letter, Aaron?
Acrostic.
The acrostic was very good, I thought, and a haiku.
I'm a big haiku girl, so that's my go-to. But try to branch out.
How's that working for you?
I don't know. I might get into the Sonic game at some point.
Isn't that A B and then like or something like 4 and then
I would answer this, but I think we have a literary expert on the podcast, so I don't want to get corrected in front of Godfrey.
You're the one with a Vanderbilt degree.
Oh, you're the one that went to Ole Miss journalism school.
Yeah, it's Ole Miss journalism school. You can get that shit in a drive-through.
I believe
it's still Ole Miss.
Yeah, let's not kid ourselves. I also graduated with a 196. I had to take have I ever told this story on the show before? I had to take a class by mail because I left in December well after I was supposed to. And they were like, hey, you've done everything you're supposed to after a long, long time. But your average after this long time is a 1.96 cumulative GPA. And they're like, that's not allowed. We've never had this happen before because people with GPAs like that, they usually just drop out of college. But I didn't. I stayed true. So they're like, you have to raise your GPA to a 2 or we can't give you a degree. So shout out to a fine woman named Ellen Meacham, who will not be listening to this. I took by mail teaching journalism to high school students and had to write out lesson plans. And that's how they finally gave me the degree. Needless to say, I will not be going to grad school anytime soon.
That's honestly
you went to Vandy, so I don't feel any pressure around me.
And this is the person who poo-poos the Heisman Trophy and tells us all how to feel.
I'm pretty sure.
I said enjoy it. I just said it was an absolute parade of trash.
Sort of like your degree.
No, it's not really a parade. I mean, it would
be
funny.
A single sheet of trash.
You get a 196 at Vanderbilt. I'm pretty sure they just kick you out because they're like, you're ruining our reputation.
Well,
I think they like disappear you like mafia style.
Yeah,
how do you actually to maintain 4, 5, 6 years or whatever of that means you're just like not trying and not going to class half the time.
I was so I got kicked out more than once. The first time I wrote a letter about how I was sad or something and just got right back in. And then the last time they were like,
why were you kicked out the first time?
Grades.
Okay. Right.
I moved. Well,
Did you just not try? Like you're not a dumbass.
In 2000, we'll leave that.
You probably thought the curriculum was like corrupt or like.
No, it wasn't a moral stance. No, I was just a huge. I can't remember how hard the language filter is on this show, but I was.
Go for it.
There isn't one.
I was a huge fuck up. But like real good at it. I will say this: I was training to become a great reporter, but I was also a bartender, and academics just did not factor into that. Like I could meet a daily deadline and I could go out and do debaucherous nonsense, but like going to college felt very arbitrary.
But it probably was good for your journal, like being a good journalist, because you had to figure out a way around the norm. And just
I've told this story in journalism classes before. Like between being a daily beat writer for an SEC school even if it's the campus newspaper, because I was also stringing for other newspapers and then also being a dirtbag. I knew every athletic administrator, police officer, lawyer, drug dealer. Like I knew the entire pantheon in this culture. And so if a kid got arrested, people would always call me and be like, hey, can you find out what actually happened? And this is, I do speak in front of journalism classes and I do say this kind of stuff. And you can see the instructors in the back just kind of have like Braden's look on his face right now. Just a total wincing pain.
No, but being on a first name basis with the fraternity district cop and it is, I mean, it's good for storytelling.
And the football ops guy, no question.
Yes. And you got to know all your dirt bags.
What's fascinating is that you really were training to be like a 1970s reporter, actually, is what you were really.
It is funny. Yeah. Because like,
to be.
And if you want to do this for a living, if you're listening to this and you are in college or whatever, I would strongly advise that if you want to be a reporter, learn cops, courts, and contracts, because how many times I bet you in this show, maybe not this show today, but I bet you in the next show or two, we will have a conversation that will hinge on a contract to do with a coach. And I honestly think in journalism schools in America, they should just teach like intro to contract law, especially if you want to work in sports, because we can talk about like the Lane Kiffin or James Franklin extensions, how they don't actually mean something, but we don't like, I have to have a lawyer explain that to me. And that's information I wish I just had in my brain.
So Tom Luginbill will be on the show today.
Transition out of that, buddy.
We'll cover
the tangent.
Recruiting on the program. All right, as long as we're doing tangents, can I throw a tangent out there real quickly?
Tangent away
for everybody. Real fast here. I am honored to be hosting Feinbaum next week on ESPN Radio, and I would like the two of you to come up with something that I need to work into that audience so that those who are listening, who are Fringe Element listeners, know that was for you guys.
Like a safe word?
Sure. I wasn't going that direction, but
oh, glad you said that. Off the top of
peaches. The word is peaches.
Oklahoma.
Just thought I'd throw it out there. A little humble brag, but also
are we trying to keep it secret?
No, it's for our audience here on this show.
I would demand some vocabulary because you're always making fun of me about mine.
Okay. Like,
so Steven picked a really hard word to work in, but try to make it seem natural. Actually, I'm not trying to get us on another tangent. We used to play this game in my family on the holidays where we all would draw a really random line out of a hat. And the goal at big family holidays was to try to work it into a sentence with a group of 3 or more without people noticing. And my best one I ever got away with was, it's almost spring in the Congo. So if you could work that into nice.
It's almost spring in the Congo.
Man, your family holidays are so much more productive. Mine is just like, make sure no one gets too drunk and then take their keys.
That's helpful too, but
it's almost spring in the Congo. Is that what we're going with here?
I think if you could work that in seamlessly, it would be extremely impressive.
On the Feinbaum show?
Yeah, try it, Braden.
Oh,
I've got a couple here. But some of these are just going to be, there really is no way to blend them into the kind of conversation that you're going to have on that show.
Obsequiously.
No, it's not going to work either.
Okay. All right.
So, all right, this is one I feel like will stick out just enough, but you could actually work into conversation.
Oh God. All right.
I actually have vocabulary lists as I read, and if it's something I encounter that I cannot immediately contextualize, I do stop and look it up, which is how you build a vocabulary.
Right.
Right. Braden, do you know what the word redolent means? REDOLENT.
Can I have the language of origin, please?
Say it again. RED what?
Redolent. REDOLENT.
Okay. I feel like that's something that's happening at Auburn right now.
Like open to opportunities and shit.
So like Bo Nix.
It's an adjective.
Redolent.
So the most common usage, the most common definition is strongly reminiscent or suggestive of. So here's your synonyms: evocative, suggestive, reminiscent, remindful.
Okay.
Again, it's redolent. Now, I will say this.
So watching Georgia lose was very redolent.
Yes. So I will say that redolent is often, and this is not specific to the definition, but in most conversation or most literature, redolent usually has a negative connotation. Okay. Usually. So it reminds you of
watching Georgia.
strongly reminiscent or suggestive of. It can be redolent of something positive. I usually encounter it if you're reading fiction, especially. It's redolent of something like
okay, all right,
traumatic or a bad memory or something.
Redolent. The
like
garbage,
perhaps
the
spending
garbage
a spring
can
in the
was,
Congo.
Yes, the garbage can was
Spring in the
redolent
Congo is
of
beautiful.
eggs or something like that.
It is.
Okay,
I didn't
that's
know the
good.
weather was.
You
so
could
nice
look,
in the
man. I just like
What else you
that
got?
one's
Is that
that one's not that hard. Yeah, I
The
mean,
top thing on, yeah,
Spring in
that
the
you could do
condos.
that because it kind of sounds
Yeah.
like normal.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you
Right,
could
that's
slip
why I
it in
picked
and
it.
people would like
I
not
mean,
really question it.
Phyllis would be pissed because she wouldn't understand. But
Right.
Like you're right. That one's fairly easy. I don't know how I'm going to do.
So would Hal
It's
in
almost
Winchester,
spring in the
Arkansas, but I mean
almost
Winchester, Kentucky. But the
almost
top thing on Urban
spring in the
Dictionary,
Congo.
if we want to add another layer in there to
Oh, man.
almost spring in the Congo is going to be a challenge. But the top thing on today's Urban Dictionary is California sober, which means to abstain from all drugs except marijuana.
except
and alcohol.
marijuana. Yeah, I've heard California.
California.
sober.
I've heard that before too. California.
When you don't
sober.
drink,
Okay.
you just smoke weed. Yeah, I've
But
heard
that would be tough.
Also sort of like the Georgia Bulldogs.
Hang on, I'm going through.
All right, that's enough. We have to talk actual football here.
Okay.
If we must.
That was two very good. That's two very good. Three very good suggestions. So I
I
will
hope
see.
people are still listening, but
Congo is. I mean, the Congo is going to be that's the actual lift there. I
almost
guess
almost
it's
spring in the
It's almost
Congo.
Spring in the Congo.
and the best part is that it's almost.
But I have to. There's no like. I can use it however I want, right? Like it doesn't matter. There's no rules, right? Like,
There's no rules. You just have to slip
get it
it. I
out.
mean, when you
all right.
played the
That-
game, you'd have to get away with it in a group of 3 or more without them calling you out. But the later
that's
in the
different.
night it got, the more you're likely to forget you are playing
Yeah,
the phrase game. So
You could also just mention my name. I am actually banned from the SEC network, so you could just
Are
throw
you
that
really?
out there. Yeah, I am.
I was
can
going to
tell
see
that
if you
story in
wanted.
the air too.
I was going to see if you guys wanted to come on.
This is
I
hey,
guess not.
bring
I
Erin
can.
on.
I'm definitely
Yes.
not banned from the SEC network. I don't know
Do
about
not-
Godfrey.
like
Aaron, you work for the SEC network.
I
leave
do
this
have a
in-
closer connection.
I have friends that like Split Zone Duo, the show I co-host. Richard Johnson's on there every Monday night in football season on Thinking Out Loud. But I am not. I have been told
With-
by three
with Spencer,
individuals at I've been
You
told
do
by
have
3.
to have a better GPA than a 196 to go on SEC network.
That's not true at all.
I know you're right.
Wow.
Have you heard people calling to
pause there.
Feinbaum? That's clearly a joke.
Exactly.
Well, they don't.
yeah.
They don't count. That's not what we're talking.
I've been told by 3 individuals at the SEC network, and it's not a ban from the ESPN side. It is a ban from the conference side.
That's
So,
what I figured.
Shout out to the conference communication office in Birmingham. because
LMAO.
So
I'm
now
on a
let's-
list.
So now let's give him a chance to take a dump on the coolest award in the sport. All right. So Bryce Young wins the Heisman
The
Trophy.
Ray guy?
Bryce Young wins the Heisman Trophy. He got like 684 first place votes. It's the first time since 1962 that 2 defensive players finished in the top 5. It's the first time since 1980 that a defensive lineman finished as high as 2nd place with Aiden Hutchinson. It's the first time an Alabama quarterback has ever won the award. Alabama now has 4 such trophies, which I believe puts them behind only, I'm doing this off the top of my head, Oklahoma, USC, Notre Dame, I believe.
I can't fact check you on that off the top
for
of my
Heisman
head.
trophies. They all have 7. Ohio State, sorry, that's the other one. They all have 7. Alabama, after 105 years of not having a Heisman Trophy, they now have 4 in the last Nick Saban years.
Only 6 teams have won it back to back.
There you go. No, I guess my only question for you, Stephen, because I don't really want to hear you poo-poo the award any longer. I just do you
I have a
find
question.
do you find any comfort? I'll give you a chance. Do you find any comfort at all with there being 2 defensive players in the top 5 that are clearly deserving? Like, is that a sign of anything, or you just don't care?
I guess if I wanted to be nice, I could say it does, but I think the result was always, I mean, to me, the runners up, I have no interest in it. And so I don't tend to draw any context from it because the award at the end is just such a fait accompli that I don't really worry too much about 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. I have a question though, and it is related to a defensive runner up. Was there really, because I didn't watch a stitch of it. Army Navy kind of took it out of me. That was a game. Was there really an anti-Ohio State thing going on, or was this overplayed?
No, so it's a little overplayed. I did not see it either. I was my wife and I were walking through the desert in Arizona, but
Nice.
it was inappropriate. It is not something I would have said if I was standing on the Heisman stage on national television.
What did he say?
But it wasn't also that big of a deal either. So Desmond Howard, Michigan grad, was interviewing Aiden
Right.
Hutchinson, Michigan player,
Okay.
and he basically was talking about why he came back, and he came back to beat Ohio State and win a Big Ten championship and get to the playoff. All pretty standardized stuff.
Yeah, I'm fine with all that so far.
And so he kind of like, he beats Ohio State, and CJ Stroud is literally standing like 4 feet away.
I'm okay with that
from him. And he so like the crowd kind of like, when he says beat Ohio State, the crowd kind of like egged him on a little bit. And then they joked and they said, well, it's a good thing so-and-so standing in between you guys. And I think there was one of the other finalists standing in between. I don't remember who it was.
Okay.
Totally harmless joke.
Oh, is that it?
Desmond Howard, then again, a simple throwaway line. Desmond Howard says, I'm paraphrasing here, something of the lines of, well, better than the Ohio State offensive line. And it is not a.
Wait, wasn't Ryan Day there because CJ's there?
Probably, yes.
Ooh, spicy.
So again, with
CJ Stroud group got called out.
CJ Stroud was clearly not happy about this, but like also didn't react at all. Like didn't.
Good for him.
Didn't do anything, but he clearly wasn't happy. Erin, I'll ask you this first then, because Stephen brought it up.
Okay.
First of all, like, do you feel like that's it's a throwaway one line? I would not have done it because the stage feels a little bit more formal than sort of what feels like sort of a college game day radio station podcast one line,
Yeah.
What do you think of the move there by Desmond Howard, which again has nothing to do with the SEC?
I mean, it's good. I guess it's good TV, although it's only as good as the reaction. So the reaction wasn't great. So it's, kind of sort of cut off his moment there. Feels a little Kanye Taylor Swift reminiscent to me.
Yeah.
Not really needed. However,
that's about right.
I will say, if we're going back to the initial question, which is, does this restore faith in the award? I would say, or a little bit, I would venture to say, for me, yes, because I feel that the reason Bryce Young's performance is what I think landed him the award in like the last 2-3 weeks of the season. I think that it would have been different had we not had that, or could have been, had we not had that insane, into the season stretch from him. He peaked at the exact right time. So for me, having 2 defensive guys that high gives me a little bit of faith.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's good. And now
it's good.
Would Bryce Young not have won it? I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but I think he won it. I don't think he won it. Yes. I think he won it for himself at the end.
I do. I know, it does. It's not the, let's just give it to the best player on the best team thing. That's not what happened here. Like this guy's, he's totally deserving. Now, I did not vote.
Now tell us who you voted for. Wait, just tell us your ballot now.
Isn't that exactly what happened though? They gave it to the best player on the best team?
No, he's not the best player on the best team. Okay. But that's my personal opinion, and that's how I voted.
If there was more WWE stuff on the ceremony, I will recant everything and watch every year. If we get more sort of promo cutting on each other, like
so Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day shooting.
Yeah,
each other,
I'm in on that for sure.
Which is the worst phrase in the history of sports, by the way.
I think part of the reason I did just completely revulse from the whole process was whatever the last time it was, I watched a ceremony. It did feel, and I don't want to defend what happened because I kind of think like I do agree with Braden. It's sort of, I guess, hammy. It's just sort of like it doesn't fit, but at the same time, the ceremony it was and is very, very, very stale and sort of stuffy, and it does feel weird in that it doesn't fit with any other aspect of the season. So that's something I've always noticed.
It does feel a little out of place sometimes, especially considering
now
they have to go on a tour and they have to go play games that actually matter.
So I will say this. A lot of people don't know this. If you do care about the Heisman, it comes at the end of a week that is very stuffy all around college football in New York City, and none of it's televised. I was always curious why like ESPN didn't make a bigger deal of this. There's the National Football Foundation Awards Dinner. It's a black tie affair. It used to be at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. So there's a lot of these events all week where like all the mega agents and the big coaches are there. And then the Heisman feels like the natural end of that because those are the events. None of this makes television. I've always been kind of curious since ESPN wants to cover everything. Maybe cover one of those events or turn it into something. I mean, for God's sakes, we turn cameras on media days. Like,
there's got to be a reason. Now I'm curious. I'll figure it out. There's definitely a reason they don't.
this year at post-COVID, they moved some of the events to Las Vegas. And so it was actually a lot of people in the industry, a lot of reporters who like do both. I stayed home this year, but you kind of had to pick if you were going to do Heisman, Army, Navy, and then the awards and the conventions and the ceremony stuff during the week. And so it's never been like that as long as I've been doing it.
Interesting.
Do you guys care at all who I voted for?
Yeah, I asked you.
You
just don't listen to me.
Bryce Young was number 3. I listened to you very well. I'd like to think that our show talked about Aiden Hutchinson before everybody else in the world being on Heisman ballots.
For an SEC show, I guess. Yeah.
For an SEC show, for sure. I had Aiden Hutchinson number 2, and I had Will Anderson number 1. That was my ballot.
Can you say that one more time? Because you know that thing where you like see people's mouths moving, but you aren't listening? That's what I just did. Can you say it one more time?
You just told him that he doesn't listen
to you.
And then you just admitted.
I understand the irony of it, Godfrey. I get that. And
cool.
I do. But that's where we lie.
That's where we are.
Number 1, Will Anderson Jr.
Writing it all down.
Alabama.
So you voted for a guy number 1 that wasn't even there?
By the way, I also don't know why he wasn't there, because he and CJ Stroud basically had the same vote total, and it's the cutoff line on who goes as a finalist.
Why is this a smart award?
Is largely based on the cutoff total, which should have been after. Will Anderson should have actually been there, so he should have been a finalist in my opinion.
They cut it at the gap.
They're supposed to cut it at the gap so that there's nobody there that doesn't feel like they have a chance, right? Which is fine. But then it would have been 3. They should have had 3 guys there, really just the 1. But allowing CJ Stroud to be there to me makes no sense, because Will Anderson was basically the same.
You just let 5 of them go? Who cares?
I get it.
That's just mean. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
31 first place votes for Will Anderson. He's the best college football player on the planet. That's my opinion. I watched every team in the country, and I thought he was the most impactful, most dynamic, most impressive, most productive, most talented, best football player that I saw. That's it. Like, Aiden Hutchinson was bigger in bigger moments. Bryce Young plays quarterback. Like, I get it, all this other stuff, but like, there wasn't a better football player than Will Anderson that I saw the entire season on any team. That includes Jordan Davis, who I also considered, Nakobe Dean. I had 3 defensive players in my top 5, and that was it. So there you have it.
I feel enlightened now that I know this, and amongst you talking about that, I have an idea.
All right.
I think on the show next week, or in the next couple of weeks, we should do our own senior, well, they don't have to be senior, but college football superlatives, including like you did in high school. So best overall, we could go best dressed, we could go funniest, we could go most irreverent, we could make up our own categories. We could give other people the attention they deserve, since they didn't get to go to the Heisman ceremony.
Steven, these are
you guys hate this idea, clearly.
These are your people you're talking about, Steven. These are the people you want to give love to. You want to make sure that
we could give superlatives. It'll be funnier and cooler.
You want to make sure Hendon Hooker gets enough love for being as good as he was.
I mean, I could definitely take all the non-Heisman awards, which I know they already do this. They have like the Home Depot award show. I could give me that event, and we'll roll it in with Erin's idea.
If this gets big enough, we could do our own award show. Maybe people will want to come dress out. That'll be like the Met Gala, but for sports.
Yeah, you guys gave away the
Heisman.
The Heisman, yeah.
Real trophy, real invitation. We flew 3 nominees every year to New York. We did the whole deal. It was awesome. And we had a ceremony and everything.
Was it the best? Was it the best large player in?
No, it was the best. It was a touchdown scored by a lineman. Is basically was the actual definition. Yeah. We stayed away from the word fat, and we stayed away from all those words. But yeah, it was a blast too. Every year.
Yeah, that's awesome. We can make a word in each of our honor. Like Godfrey's could be lowest GPA but best at poetry. Mine could be the funniest, obviously, and then Braden.
I would like to apologize to our audience for this entire episode.
I'm not apologizing for shit.
Yeah, I think it's fun.
Quarterback news in the SEC, since we've already moved along here. Hendon Hooker has announced he's coming back. I'm not sure where he was going. I think his numbers are vastly underrated across the conference. Matt Corral announces he's headed to the NFL. No surprise there, of course. Zach Calzada will transfer. The guy who beat Alabama will transfer from Texas A&M. Bo Nix is transferring from Auburn in a very weird, creepy Instagram video, whatever he posted. It was just
I did
odd.
not see that video.
It was just odd. Like, it's not a knock on Bo Nix. It was just an odd like visual layout there with like a total pitch black background.
That's his initial way to say that he was leaving.
I mean, he was not. He didn't say anything wrong. He just came out and said, "Hey, I've decided blah 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 blah," like every kid does. It was just a weird looking video.
Okay.
I think the question is, after Bryce Young, who's the best quarterback in the conference next year? And there's a lot of really good players that have a case for that, and some big news there at the quarterback with all the quarterbacks deciding all these things over the next couple of days. We'll get to Auburn and what it means, but just any thoughts? Because I think Hendon Hooker is vastly underrated. That's one of my initial thoughts from seeing the quarterback news this week.
I think we are far from knowing what the quarterback picture looks like in this conference, and I think this is we're getting a kind of a glimpse of the norm. This is going to be what it's like from now on. You know, I'm not passing a judgment on that one way or the other, but I do think we have a very incomplete picture. And as Braden, you know this, working in the preseason magazine industry, like, I'm laughing out loud before I finish the sentence. I think I have to start doing that work. And like, it's December 14th. I'm just gonna do this live on it. Yeah. I have to start doing this in 9 weeks for the 2022 season. In 9 weeks, we have to start calling up. Like, what I do specifically is like call coaches and say, hey, what do you think of these rival teams? These rosters are going to be so incredibly fluid, even at the quarterback position, even going into summer and fall camp. And I think we might see seasons or sort of like spikes in the calendar of where certain position groups are transferring, maybe.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It maybe. I mean, we're all learning how to do this for the first time right now.
Yeah. Had we had this conversation last week, Bo Nix would have been the starting quarterback at Auburn that we would have said probably is among the better players in the conference returning next season. And South Carolina has a giant hole on its roster at quarterback. That's what we would have said last week on the show.
Yes.
A little different.
Now Bo Nix is left Auburn, and Spencer Rattler, one of the preseason Heisman Trophy favorites, is now your starting quarterback at South Carolina.
I mean,
and Tom Luginbill is going to talk about this a little bit more later on, but like this is, I think you're right to say, get used to the fluidity and the new norm.
Yeah,
I do think there will be it'll go so far, it'll come back a little bit, but there will be a new norm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the problem is, I agree with what you said in terms of a progression chart. Like it will get crazy. It will take a step back, and we'll kind of figure out where the median is. The problem is we don't know what that actually like. How many quarterbacks are we talking about? And let's just look at the Power 5 schools. Are we looking at 30 to 40% of all starting quarterbacks doing this? Are we looking at
There are 18 quarterbacks, I believe, in the transfer portal that started last year in Division I. I think like 13 of them are Power 5. So you're talking about a fifth of the Power 5, roughly.
Right.
Yeah.
We also still don't have transfer stuff completely ironed out. They're still looking at a universal standard and then reinstating. From what I've been told, there's going to be the universal one-time transfer, and then the graduate transfer will basically go away, or it'll all sort of be put together, and you can still have a hardship transfer, but they will be actually, I mean, this is all just conjecture and rumor. I'm sure you guys have seen this before, where it's like, oh, so-and-so's grandmother is sick, so he's transferring closer to home to play at this school. That's going to be scrutinized, I think, a little bit more in the coming years, because you do get the one-time, hey, you can transfer wherever you want to move. So is this going to kill the backup quarterback? Is this going to kill competition? I'm sure we're going to see all of those awesome 65-year-old legacy media dudes ringing their, just complaining all off season long. And then I think we'll play ball next year. And I think it's going to be really hard to draw conclusions early, like until you get to the pretty much a month out of the season.
Erin, do you know who the first ever, this is a random factoid here, do you know who the first ever graduate transfer football player ever was? The guy who invented the rule, essentially.
Can you give me like a decade?
I'm trying to think of this too.
I got you both. Okay, well,
I think
it's
you thought you were only going to trick Godfrey. I'm smarter, remember?
That's true. You did go.
He's been doing it longer. I would never challenge Godfrey on his football knowledge.
But you did receive actual grades, so that's a positive for you.
I received the grades.
He got the grades.
Yeah, I got a lot of F's.
Grade delivery.
This person, I think this person might have transferred to Vanderbilt while you were there.
Wait, well, who was there? I was there?
No, well, Erin was there.
Oh, I've got one earlier than
J-Rod
that.
because he wasn't.
I don't think so.
Jordan played for 2 years.
This guy went from Arizona to Vanderbilt.
What year?
He was a quarterback. Old Richard Kovalcheck. Dick Kovalcheck was the first.
What year was
Definitely was not there when I was there. I don't know how old you think I am, but
this was like 2012, Aaron. 2011.
I could beat that, dude.
No, it was not.
He was the first graduate. He was the first graduate transfer.
No, he wasn't. Jeremiah Masoli.
That's after.
No, it's not. Look it up.
Then it was not when Aaron was there.
Jeremiah Masoli
also, in case you guys were wondering, it's almost spring in the Congo.
That's close. We'll get there. We'll work on it.
I
mentioned that I started,
he was not there when I was
weeks.
there, Braden. We'll look it up there.
No. Yeah. If Jeremiah Masoli was what, like 09, something like that.
I believe he played in the 2010 season.
You're right. Then it was not when Aaron was there. I was just guessing at that though.
When he was
nicknamed Jeremiah Mastoli for apparently burglarizing something. I don't remember.
Oh, now I've got to look up Richard Kovalcheck to find out what year this was.
Kovalcheck.
In August 31st, 2010, the NCAA denied Masoli's waiver for immediate eligibility in a press release, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, this was a big deal, and they really, really whined about it.
Although Jeremiah Masoli and I are almost birthday twins.
It's because he was not qualified to do it, or something like that. It was like he went to JUCO or something like that.
Hey, man, he just wanted to get a graduate degree in Parks and Rec from Ole Miss after going to Oregon, that natural trajectory of one's career.
Right, of course. After punching a guy on Thursday Night Football in Boise. You're right, Aaron. I apologize.
Masoli didn't punch him. That was LeGarrette Blunt.
God, music to my ears. What'd you say?
It was a few years earlier than you. So I was not doing that on purpose. I just didn't remember the years. It was 2006. So Richard,
there you go.
Richard Kovalcheck transferred from Arizona to Vanderbilt from 05 to 06. And if you want to win a bar bet,
the piece at.
Now you're just besmirching the lady's age.
That's not my intent, you losers. That was not my intent to do that. I apologize, Aaron. Anyway,
it's honestly fun.
That would be a fun trivia bar question, bet to win. At some point.
Say a sentence.
Old Dick Kovalcheck. Transferring.
That's a really bad name.
Also,
I cannot believe this has already almost been an hour.
I know. Also, LSU, to your question, Stephen, about how many teams and how many quarterbacks and transferring, LSU is leading the nation in number of quarterbacks in the transfer portal.
People want consistency, honestly, and I'm gonna be a little ADD here, but I will say to Auburn, or to Bo Nix's credit, I think it would be very, very difficult to be malleable enough to even be somewhat kind of successful under the amount of different coaches that he had. I think Auburn, although this is not an ideal season for them, was probably lucky to even have him this long, because I think this season could have been an absolute, even like a real shit show without it. You got to give him credit, because
I totally agree.
I don't know how you go, especially quarterbacks. Certain positions are very dependent upon the coaching staff that brings them in. And I would say quarterbacks schematically have to fit a system. I'm impressed that he was able to do what he did under that many different staffs.
Well, that's a perfect segue, Aaron, because I want to ask Steve. I want to dive a little bit deeper into what we think is actually happening at Auburn, because now Bo Nix is left. Tank Bigsby announced he was going to leave and looked like he was going to go to Georgia, and then hours later decided to stay at Auburn for whatever reason. Let your mind wander on that one. And then, of course, he's fired multiple coaches on the offensive coaching staff already. We've talked a lot about the tensions between the coaching staff, Boise State versus SEC and all that stuff. Boosters are a huge role in all of this, both in the arm and writing the checks, the paychecks. So there's just all this stuff going on with Auburn. So I'm going to ask you about that in a second, Stephen. I will say this about Bo Nix, though. He is I hope he goes to Ole Miss, because nothing, or LSU, someplace that plays Auburn in the division.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because the only thing that would make his career more interesting is that final chapter.
Right.
This is a guy who's a legacy player with a legacy last name, who throws an overtime touchdown in his first career start as an Auburn Tiger, doesn't really progress, has to play through a worldwide pandemic, a coaching change, and then comes out playing his best football in 2021 under Brian Harsin.
Yes.
And now decides to leave. It is one of the most interesting careers, and I guarantee you this dude has taken a ton of shit from Auburn fans.
100%.
Well, I mean,
because he said that he was like, I've done everything I can do for Auburn. I've got to do something for me, which I think is the most fair statement he could have possibly made leaving, despite his weird Instagram video that I just glanced at. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if I am Bo Nix right now, this might sound weird, but I think I'm going to Ole Miss.
Why? I was about to say that I don't think Ole Miss or LSU feel like good landing spots for him.
Well, I was deciding between the two.
Oh,
because Braden threw those two out.
You would assume one of the major reasons he's leaving has to do with Auburn's competitiveness, right?
Do you?
Or consistency.
Spencer Rattler just went to South Carolina.
I think that was a important storm in a personal relationship that he had with Beamer, who was an assistant coach.
Sure. I'm just saying, like, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. Is it not a personal relationship related? That's my question about Auburn.
Yeah, I'm just, if I'm Bo Nix, I'm going to go somewhere that has a better chance of winning double-digit games in 2022. And right now we have no idea what LSU is. And Ole Miss is losing so much, in a roster that doesn't normally withstand those transitions too well. And
this is true.
Yeah. Now, I'm a little curious what he and his feet would look like in a Lane Kiffin offense. Maybe I'm kind of talking myself into LSU as I answer this question, only because I think I know what they're going to run, and it's going to be a little bit more stationary. You would assume that roster's better. I mean, Ed's problem was never recruiting.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. Ole Miss would be interesting. Now, look, Ole Miss would be the best location for us in terms of sort of the dramatic narrative. From a soap opera perspective, I think, him going to Ole Miss would be great. He beat Ole Miss, and he was only one of two teams who did that this year. So, yeah, I don't know. He may be on a worse team losing to Auburn next year. So I'm sure the message boards would love that.
That's all I'm doing is rooting for me.
Yeah.
And and this is a little bit of a more emotional approach, but thinking through trying to do everything you possibly could to keep Auburn afloat amongst a very tumultuous coaching change period, a pandemic, like Braden mentioned, and everything else. He probably just wants some love also, which Ole Miss is more likely to dish up than LSU. I know he also wants to win, but if you lose anything at LSU, they're throwing alligators at your head and shit.
I mean, why not go to like,
to me, this is
where
like
else? Can we talk about where else?
Some Pac-12, some good Pac. Yeah, I was
Yes.
about to say some good Pac-12 school. Like I don't know ASU's situation off the top of my head, but like
Jaden Daniels is back, so
go somewhere with a good line to see what you can
go to
actually
Oregon.
Yeah,
go to Oregon. Anthony Brown
where
was
you
the
will
reason,
be loved,
and it's very chill. It's very relaxing. Lots of microbrews and legal.
Very
weed.
curious what that offensive philosophy is going to look like under a young DC though. For Nix, that would be, I would be asking a lot of questions up front.
Which is the reason I brought it up, is because now Dan Lanning is the head coach at Oregon, the former defensive coordinator for the Georgia Bulldogs. We're going to get to a lot of these coaches. Texas A&M is losing their superstar defensive coordinator to Wake Forest or to Duke as well. Mike Elko has left. We're seeing a lot of coordinators move, which is also interesting about the carousel, Stephen, because the carousel could have been crazier, but Oklahoma, Oregon, Notre Dame all hired coordinators. So did Virginia and Duke and a lot of these programs, which is very interesting to me. Before we get into the sort of the latest coaching news and are we done with the carousel and where the dominoes coming from, I do want to know, do you guys believe there's anything more there with Auburn as it pertains to Tank Bigsby as well as Bo Nix? Is this a offensive scheme? Is this personality clash? Is it just Bo Nix has put up with a whole lot of crap in 3 years and it's time for him to go?
Incomplete. I would just say incomplete right now. I get where you're headed on this, but I think maybe somewhere in that list that you just gave, one or maybe even two or three of those things are the answer. I know for what I do that I don't have enough information yet. Something's up, and sometimes just saying that is worthwhile.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and this is going to be a very, very, very heavily monitored offseason at Auburn. Because this guy does not have consensus anything. This guy does not have the backing of the fan base or the boosters. And so, Yeah, I'm very, very curious.
He also just he can't reach his potential there, which I think at this point, he's been a team player this long. You need the kind of system around you that can highlight, if he's thinking on the next level, you need the kind of system around you, your O-line and everybody else to actually show off what you can do to potentially be able to keep playing. So,
yes,
it just, you don't get COVID in the preseason, then fire a wide receivers coach midway through, quietly, without anyone really noticing, fire your offensive coordinator. There was already a controversial sort of booster driven decision in the first place with all these booster divides, and now have your two superstar backfield offensive weapons decide on the same day to leave your program. Whether they got Tank Bigsby back or otherwise. Oh, by the way, no one's been a bigger fan of lawsuits than Brian Harsin because the lawsuit that's challenging the vaccine mandate, a stay of execution for the state of Alabama. I just don't, it's hard for me to put all that onto a table, read it all, and not think something else is going on. So
yeah, I definitely think there's something. Yeah, we just don't know exactly how to frame it yet.
Yeah, okay. I don't know how they all fit together. I just know that regardless of the other puzzle pieces, if I would be doing the exact same shit if I was Bo Nix, I don't know how everything else fits together.
I tend to agree with that as well. Steven, real quickly, Georgia has a defensive coordinator opening. Texas A&M has a defensive coordinator opening. We've seen, Jeff Lebby leaves Ole Miss to go coach with Brent Venables at Oklahoma. Are we seeing the end is the carousel quieting down right now? And who are your biggest of those teams and of those departures? Who are we most concerned about?
Well, I don't think Georgia technically has the opening anymore, right?
I guess that's true.
Coach Boone back. I made that joke as soon as the landing news broke and everyone thought I was being mean and trolling Georgia. And then I said, wait, and he's back.
No longer drinking beer in the facility. Is that what you're saying?
Hey, I never said anything about it. I mean, I don't see how one would preclude the other. I think that things are going to be, I'm not going to try. I don't want to sound this ominous, but I think things are calm for now. And what I mean by that specifically is I do think the NFL is going to affect the college cycle and structure in some way. Don't know what yet. My standard boilerplate is like, look, it's, I think the average now is 6.25 jobs. It's pretty crazy. It's above 6 jobs a year that open in the league. And we've seen, not every season, but we've now seen more frequency in recent seasons of coaches that are coming directly from the college ranks, which is newsworthy because for a while that was not happening. There was a huge separation between what a college coach was and what an NFL coach was, and there was a bias against our college coaches in the pro leagues. All that has fallen down completely. What I find interesting is like Matt Rule was not the first name on the list. Cliff Kingsbury was not the first name. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury was fired. He was not hired away. He was fired first from a 500 Big 12 team, and now he has one of the best franchises in the NFL. I find it hard to believe that the NFL is not going to try and mine the success of Kingsbury specifically and find an offensive-minded collegiate coach that can run something similar. I mean, this is the imitation league, more so than I think than any other professional sports league. The NFL is going to copycat as much as possible. So who is that? Who are we talking about here?
Pick me.
Yes, Braden, go.
Ryan Day.
Raised your hand to speak.
Yes.
Before.
Ryan Day for Justin Fields in Chicago.
Sure.
Lane Kiffin.
Yes.
Somebody in place of Urban Meyer in Jacksonville.
Got to, right?
I see Jacksonville. This is just a gentle pushback because I am a college football reporter and I don't claim to have insight on the NFL, but I would find it hard to believe that they would go college twice, especially with what college has given them with Meyer. I do think
so unpredictable, that situation.
Talk about people that don't care after they lose.
Right.
Oh my God. What's the problem with your team? Why are they losing? Leaks. It's leaks, people.
The Ryan Day thing just won't go away. So now we're talking we're talking about this all casually, but like that's a top 3 job in college football. Like,
yeah, it's big time.
It's hard to say there's a better job in college football than that one. So, if that happens, then obviously you're going to see another sea change. I mean, if you I don't know if you want me to play that out, but let's just say Ryan Day went to the Bears. I think the first phone call is to Luke Fickell,
right?
And then Cincinnati's open. The prohibitive favorite for Cincinnati was always going to be Marcus Freeman, who is now the head coach at Notre Dame. So you would have a highly sought after Cincinnati job that would not necessarily pull a sitting SEC head coach away, but it would cause another cascade from what we've seen. I'm going to tease one. There's a bowl team that's probably going to have a coach retire soon. Not in the SEC. Like at the end of his bowl.
Will they be playing the Kentucky Wildcats in that bowl game? Oh, interesting.
Huh. Swerve.
Interesting. So not someone who's been coaching for 21 years.
At this point, Kirk Ferentz retiring. I have several in-jokes with agents. Kirk Ferentz retiring is as funny as when agents call me and say, Troy Calhoun's interested in the job, or Stockstill's retiring at Middle Tennessee. Those are my two favorite jokes.
Yeah.
Because I hear that every single year.
I wish I knew the answer to this.
I know. You said Power 5, coach?
No, I just said coach in a bowl.
Yeah, he just said coach in a bowl.
That's like all of them.
No, it's not.
Okay, fine.
I'm not going to tell you on the air. So
82 out of 130.
You don't get to do anything fun.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Just as
what do we
a
need
thought,
to talk about still? Signing day?
We were going to talk about signing day, but Tom Luginbill is going to do that for us.
Wait, no, this is like my thing.
I know. Pay attention. Okay, I'll give you some time for it then, Erin. I want to make sure you have some time for it. I was going to ask one more question about coordinators because Kirby Smart was a first-time coordinator, was very good at Georgia, is very good at Georgia. We're now seeing coordinators get jobs. Sam Pittman was a first-time head coach at Arkansas, did pretty well. I'm just curious if do you guys see any actual scientific threads through all of this, or is it just okay, well, go ahead.
I think the football guy is back, and I think the media darling is taking a back seat. So I think the Tom Hermans and Jeff Collinses and those media darlings, I think they've taken it pretty hard the last couple of years. They were the in vogue hire maybe the previous decade. I don't know where to draw the line. I'll have to do a little bit more homework, but now I think we've talked about this before, the Pittman effect. I think you're seeing the Pittman effect in a lot of ways. Now it's hard to say about Sam Pittman when you're talking about a 35-year-old defensive coordinator. That's just, I think, hiring the hot hand. I will say this, credit to Oregon for doing that, because I don't know what's true and what's not. I tend to believe everything that oh my God, I just blanked on his name. It's terrible. Bay Area news guy. He's so good. He's the one reporter for the Pac-12.
What are you talking? Oh, I didn't understand anything you just said. Bay Area reporter for the Pac-12?
Yeah. No, he works
for Kawakami or whatever, right?
No, John Wilner. Gosh, sorry, that's terrible. John Wilner is probably the best Pac-12 reporter in the country, and he's got this report that Justin Wilcox was considering the job, maybe not doing it, whatever, and he's from Oregon. I really like that Oregon went all the way to Georgia to find a coach, because what that says to me is, I don't know what is true and not about the Wilcox thing, is let's get the best available coach. They've been burned twice by two people going back home to Florida, and there's this perception now that Oregon can't keep a coach because they're so far away. I really like that. I thought that was pretty. I thought it was a pretty bold move on Rob Mullins' part. Also, did y'all see the whole thing where every time Oregon wanted to talk to a coach in the Pac-12, they requested permission?
Oh, that's not very SEC of them.
Holy smokes, man! There are sometimes with that league and this league where I'm just like, oh shit, are we playing the same sport?
They're not.
It is like a murder fest. I mean, could you imagine?
Yeah. Talk about young coordinators. Also, John Summerall left Kentucky to go be the head coach at Troy, which is fascinating.
And he was the runner-up. I've never encountered this before. He was the runner-up when they hired Chip Lindsey, and they went back to him and basically said, "We fucked up. We should have hired you." And he did it. I think if Mark Stoops had gotten a job, had actually gotten a Florida or an LSU, which his name was attached to all these kind of bigger jobs, I think Summerall might have stayed on if he could get a co-DC title, because you just saw what happened with Dan Lanning, right? That's
right.
You're on a faster trajectory. If you are an SEC fan, you don't know his name, John Summerall will be a head coach in the SEC.
Yes.
In short order.
There's a reason I mentioned a Troy head coach on the SEC podcast.
Yes.
All right, Erin, I want to talk Cruton with you. We're going to let Steven go. Steven, always a pleasure.
Steven, you have a hard stop today. You seem so chill.
I do have a hard stop today, and I'm working in a borrowed workspace too. But
you always do this
at 38 Godfrey. Thanks, Steve.
Love y'all.
Bye.
Fringe Element, Erin Dugan, is brought to you by.
You just told me you're going to set me up for this ad.
Yeah, but the intro to the ad
is the entire
Jasper.
ad. I asked to have a second to reset. I just did the ending ad, and I will exploit you on this podcast. Let's start over. And can you actually give me a second?
Yeah, I all I needed you to say was Jaspers. Like one word would have been good enough. I wasn't.
You never let me just say one word.
No, I know. I wasn't trying to get you to do a whole thing there. I was just going to let you do the intro, and then I was going to take it and run.
I'm not going to lie to you. That was extremely unclear. And also,
okay, all right.
Is this our first fight?
No, we've had many fights.
Can this be the ad? Because it kind of works.
Oh, you want it to be the ad?
It's working.
Jaspers, what do you think?
Jaspers, are we fighting?
Are we back in the ad now?
Are we in the ad?
Are we doing this? Is this actually happening, or are we going to recut the ad?
Is the verb version of the noun adding?
I think it's like.
Are we adding?
No, I think it's.
You don't even understand PEMDAS.
Ad.
So how could you possibly tell me the answer to this?
No, it's like, I think it's like deer, where like it's plural and singular at the same time. I think it is like ad. You're doing an ad, but you're also advertising a product like Jaspers, a wonderful product like Jaspers. We're doing an advertisement and you're advertising. So I guess it does change when you conjugate it differently, I suppose.
Yeah, conjugation.
We definitely can't use this now.
We for sure can use this. And we shall.
You know what I could use? A freaking drink. That's what I could use.
I know. National Signing Day talk always makes me want to drink. And this is organic because everyone that I did talk to about National Signing Day, yes, we're still in the ad, said.
And yes, you'll know what she's talking about later on in the show.
Oh, God. When you make me do things out of order, it's confusing.
Well,
a dyslexic person would never survive the show.
A what?
Dyslexic.
Okay.
I even missaid the word dyslexic. It's okay.
Yep.
So
go to Jaspers, everybody.
Are we starting over? Are we using this?
I think we're in it. We're in it now.
Conan O'Brien says whatever he wants on his ads, and I know that we're not that famous, but
also, when has anyone ever heard one of our ads and wondered, I wonder if they say what they think? I think we've cleared that hurdle, that people know that these are unscripted.
Yeah, there's never been anything less scripted than these ads. Truly.
There are going to be 18-year-old kids on Wednesday sitting down all across this country not knowing which hat they're going to pick, and that is more scripted than what we're doing right now.
6,000%. Yes,
that's a lot of percent. All right. Well, I guess we should tell them what's at Jaspers. Should we do that?
Yeah. You want to go first or me?
There's food.
That's
now you go.
Jaspers is full of friendly faces and delicious cuisine.
They have wonderful happy hours and drink specials with classic cocktails and the next evolution of the cocktail.
They still don't have a cocktail named after our show, but we're getting there. I actually don't know because I don't feel like Braden really putting in any legwork on this. But
going back to that one, huh?
Yeah, but if you love the Preds, there is a gold standard drink named after Braden's Predator show, which Adam Vinga does not deserve a shout out on this show, but I'm going to give it to him anyway because I'm literally a Class A person. That
Class A something.
Class A something. That the gold standard has a drink named after them. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't tried it because
it's very good. It's very good. It's very light and refreshing. It's good at the end of a long National Signing Day.
Yeah.
Rivals used to just throw giant tubs of biscuits at us because we were all 25 and could eat all those things and still work 14-hour days.
God.
They would just cater to keep us in our chairs for as many hours in a row as possible.
We did the morning show. Carbs is the answer.
And we did the morning show, so we were in the office you'll tell us in a little while. At 4:30 in the morning. So it was Oh man, those were long days, dude. Those were long days. I do not miss doing 7 or 8 hours of radio on a National Signing Day. Don't miss that at all.
Doesn't sleep.
No, don't miss it. You know who else doesn't sleep? Jaspers. They just are constantly evolving, constantly coming up with new menu items, constantly coming up with great drink specials and better ways to watch games and eat food and, and park your car for free. So
they are the Nick Saban of the restaurant industry. Constantly evolving.
Jaspers. All right, Erin, let's talk a little Cruton here. Tom Luginbill is going to give us some specifics about.
I can't believe you almost just cut out my section of the show.
So here's the problem.
A real Class A asshole.
No, it's actually you and Steven's fault. Now it's my fault for choosing to have you two on the show together. But you two cannot follow. You two cannot follow a rundown to save your lives, and in fact, pride yourselves on screwing up my rundown.
I have never prided myself on that. I do pride myself on some things that have to do with your demise, but that is not one of them.
You two enjoy running the show off the rails. And I enjoy it too.
Today I did do that.
It means sometimes we lose time to have all of the conversations we want to have because you two have driven the show into the ditch.
I do feel like this show is fun though, so I think people are still listening, and we'll find out. If you're still listening and you know one of us, please text us or tweet at us so we know that you are still listening at this point.
Listen, the numbers are fantastic. We're growing like crazy, Erin. Let's not fool ourselves. People are clearly listening. But I'm the one who chose the two of you knuckleheads to be on the show with me. Like you guys said yes,
first.
I asked you. Yeah, you first. But like we all decided to put this group together, and we should have known that there were going to be too many words.
I know, but it's been so interesting. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Yes, I totally agree. But it means it is not my fault that we don't get to talk about, something like this, which I do want to talk about. We are going
to talk about it anyway.
Which is why we're spending time on it. So
Perfect.
Here we are. So I'll give you my quick little spiel about Cruting, and then you can do yours, and then we'll hear from Tom Luginbill.
Yours better be quick, because I'm pretty sure this time is carved out for me.
Team rankings. Team rankings is what matters. Individual rankings, sometimes they matter. Sometimes a player is transcendent like Tim Tebow, and it matters that he deserves all the hype and the coverage. But most of the time, the team rankings are what you need to know. And here are the only stats you need to know about it. And then I'll cede my time to the floor here. And that is, of the 32 teams that have made the playoff, 29 of them have recruited on average in the top 15. So if you say that
one more time, I did the blank thing again.
What the?
I'm just trying to make sure I'm processing all of it. Say the first number again.
32 teams have made the college football playoff.
Yep.
8 years, four teams per year. 29 of them have ranked on average over the previous 5 seasons in recruiting in the top 15. So
according to Athlon.
No, according to Composite 24/7.
Okay.
So, according to that, and that means the internet.
It's everything. Yeah.
That list is the internet because they stole that idea from me, but that's neither here nor there. But
not salty at all.
People don't forget. Anyway, it is. Listen, I'm the Winklevoss. The Winklevoss. Who are the people that actually invented Facebook? The Winklevoss twins.
I do not know the answer to this.
I am the Winklevoss twins with the 24/7 composite rankings, and 24/7 Sports is Mark Zuckerberg. They have
Thank
better
God
tech.
You don't have a twin, just byproduct. Keep going.
Also true. They were smarter and had better tech than me. They stole my idea and put it in place. But I've already said this on the air a million times, so it's not new information. Anyway. Okay. Top 15 ranking is where you have to be to make the playoff, basically. Cincinnati, of course, is not. Michigan State and Washington were not.
Yeah.
Of the 14 teams that have played in the national championship game during the playoff era, that's 7 national title games. So 14 teams made it. All but 3 of them recruited top 10 classes. So 14 teams make it to the championship game. All but 3 have had top 10 average recruiting classes.
Mm-hmm.
Of the teams that have won the national championship, of the 7 national championship winners, all but 1 was ranked in the top 8. All but 2 were ranked in the top 5. And the only team that wasn't ranked in the top 8 was Clemson in 2016 with Deshaun Watson doing crazy, spectacular Deshaun Watson things. Clemson was ranked 12th that year. So here's the gist of it. I'll try to boil this all down quicker.
Yeah. Just put
to get into the playoff, you need to recruit in the top 15 on average. To get to the national championship game, you need to recruit in the top 10 on average. And to win the national championship, you have to be in the top 5 on average. That is basically the gist and the benchmarks you need to know when you look at team recruiting rankings.
So those are very powerful statistics. Also, can I give you homework? But if you find something really cool out by doing this homework, you have to give me credit if you use it on a different show.
Okay.
Deal? Can you go back?
It's almost springtime in the Congo, man. I don't know what to say.
It's not springtime. It's almost spring in the Congo.
Sorry. My apologies.
Just please get it right. If you're going to do this on a fine bomb and you mess it up, I'm going to be pissed. So can you go back and look at the recruiting rankings for 2 years prior to teams that were in the playoffs and see if those numbers are slightly higher?
You mean like you have a lot of really talented freshmen and sophomores?
Because that's a thing when you're recruiting and then you're doing like the recruiting rankings directly to the playoffs. A lot of times those are the youngest kids on the team. So can you go back and look at those?
I'm doing 5 years. That's what I'm saying.
You're doing all
5
okay.
Years.
You're not just that 1 year.
So what the whole roster would look like.
Okay. This is your world, not really mine.
Yeah. 5 years. So the average. So when I say top 15, I mean on average over the 5 years prior to that team,
including everyone in it.
It does not include. It does not include 6th-year players. It does not include transfers, and it doesn't include like super seniors or whatever. But the point is not to involve those pieces. The point is to just look at recruiting rankings and try to tie in your specific recruiting rankings to the teams that make the playoff, play in the championship game, and win titles.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay.
Yeah.
This is again not my world. I don't live in the recruiting world. That's
all right.
Not my thing. But
so now here's
signing day. Signing day, I do.
All right, what you got?
So I just tried to. I even texted a couple people that I used to work with because I forget what I know that other people don't, just because you and I have lived in this world for so long, or me inside an athletic facility. I forget what I know that would actually be interesting to people because I forget that it's not common knowledge. But in painting a picture and bringing in a couple of different people to this, I was going to kind of go through the day starting at about 4:40 a.m. is when most people get into work on National Signing Day. And obviously this work has gone on long before this starting, and to even like give you an idea of how long before this happens. It's the day after or 2 days after National Signing Day, the year prior, for all the coaches making calls, trying to get guys through the doors. Obviously, that really takes effect in the fall when they can bring the guys on campus and let them and their families come to a game and, stand right behind the cheerleaders and the dance team during the tunnel and all of that. I don't know if that's strategic. I think it is, but
what could possibly give you that idea?
Yeah, it's like we don't really have room to dance. Is there a reason there's recruits right behind us? But
are you suggesting that 17-year-old boys are impressionable, Erin Dugan?
I have no evidence to suggest that they're not. So it starts around 4:40, and I'm talking like not people trickling in. I'm saying like we're at work at that time. And for all the recruits that are going to sign, things are prepared. So, for example, social media has gone through every single tweet that these guys have ever tweeted out. It could be 70,000. It could be 1,000. If they're guys that are coming. Now, if it's a last minute guy and you don't know, and it's things are bouncing around and puzzle pieces are changing, you can't check everything.
Somebody you wouldn't have a pre-prepared graphics package for example.
Which, yes, and be prepared to do all of this is my world, but video work, all of the video work in the world, only to have guys fall through or new guys added, which is pulling stuff from all of these like video platforms from their high school, trying to put things together very last minute or preparing things weeks in advance.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So this was around James Franklin, right? When he was the coach, you were there when he was the coach, right?
I worked there. I was in school when Mason was there, or when Franklin was there.
But you were also around Derek
under
Mace.
Mace.
Okay. So let me ask you this, and I'm not getting anybody in trouble here. I'm just curious, like, would they come to you in the video department and say, all right, these are the 8 that we really feel like 100% are going to sign. Here's another 8 that we're pretty sure are going to sign. And here's 8 we don't know about. Is that basically what they would do for you guys? They would come to you and say, hey, we definitely need you to work up like a cool little like 45-second video montage for how many players would they tell you before signing day?
Oh God. Like, I don't know. I could send a text right now and find out, but a lot. I mean, you're over preparing because social is such a big part of it, especially now in terms of other guys. So if guys are hinging on, on a decision, I mean, they definitely give you more people than they think they're going to get.
All right.
No question.
So it's not they slow play it. They actually overplay it. It makes sense.
Oh yeah. Because, and honestly, it's better for them to do that. It's a lot more work for the video department, but it's better for them to tell us ahead of time. So we're not trying to scramble to put something together that's, last minute. But it also, there's such a connection now with guys wanting, and naturally so, wanting to go where feel like they're going to be most successful, and where other guys that they know or they've played with in the past, or that are going to, make them look better, that they want to go.
I think it's funny. I'm thinking about like, how like the Super Bowl losers, like there's like countries in Africa that have like that think the Bills won 4 Super Bowls in a row.
I wish we could get use out of these videos.
That's what I'm thinking.
Where you're going?
Yeah, like there's got to be like just a storage like shed full of like, here's an image of Jalen Hurd going to like in Vanderbilt gear, like
100%.
Like just all these videos across, and it's not a Vanderbilt thing. It's like across the entire country.
It's everything.
Like there's, and again, I'm trying to think, like there's probably, and social media wasn't around for like Tim Tebow necessarily. It was like barely brand new, but if it had been around, like there's probably some compilation of like Tim Tebow in an Alabama jersey playing for Mike Shula, like running around in Bryant-Denny Stadium.
And I'll tell you, we don't delete.
I'd love to see those
Servers. We don't delete anything because you just never know. So I would venture to say that all of those still, I know at Vanderbilt, those all still exist. No question in my mind.
So awesome.
Wouldn't that be hilarious? If only we could leak that.
I want to see like Matt Corral's.
I should have done that on my way out.
I want to see like Matt Corral's Mississippi State hype video.
Wouldn't that be hilarious? Yes.
I know.
So that I'll try to be quick, but the other thing, so I have a couple things. So to finish painting this picture, and then I'll tell you what you should do on National Signing Day if you're a fan, which I think would be the most efficient thing to actually follow what's going on. Because with that being
recruits.
Don't tweet at recruits. But also I will say that sadly there is some stuff that not only you'll never know about National Signing Day in terms of how it went, because there's no way a coach or a coaching staff would ever act disappointed when they actually got interviewed or put on the spot. But you can tell in the building if heads are hanging low or not, if you're missing guys or you're getting them all. Okay. But the so in the war room, they set up this huge war room. No one's at their desks on this day. Everyone's buzzing around, acting crazy. Compliance, it depends on how fun of a compliance, now I'm forgetting her title, like director of compliance that you have. But Erin Adkins, who we've actually had on the show before talking about compliance, was a blast. She leaned all the way into National Signing Day. And every time we got a recruit, she would make up a rhyme that had to do with their particular, she'd use their position, their hometown. Like I just threw a recruit at her today. And I said, if you got Shaz Preston, who's from St. James, Louisiana, and he's a wide receiver, what would you do? So she would write something, and she wrote this today. She said, if we got him as a recruit today, she now works at UCLA, but just as an example, because he's one of the top recruits.
Is this a violation of compliance that she's commenting on an unsigned recruit?
No, because they're not even really recruiting him. I picked an SEC hyped guy and gave her that guy. She said, come one, come all, this kid can ball. And mind you, she's running around the athletic facility screaming this to anyone who will listen. Come one, come all, this kid can ball. St. James, Louisiana, this kid calls home. Shaz P catching all over people's dome. And she would just run around screaming this rhyme. And which I will not say all compliance directors are that fun, but also nothing can be announced until it goes through compliance. So as goofy and funny as she was, nothing can be said on social until it all goes through compliance. So they are the end all be all. So if you see a recruit,
make sure the signature is signed on the letter of intent and has been submitted and formalized and all that stuff.
Yeah, right. So all of this new age, like announcing the time that you're going to sign, just because someone isn't announced immediately when they're supposed to be, it doesn't mean that they're not coming. It just may mean that their compliance paperwork isn't done.
That's one of my favorite things in the world is when a kid goes on television and announces at like 11 a.m. that he's going to Florida, and like nobody can like officially confirm that the letter of intent has arrived yet for like an hour and a half, and Twitter just goes batshit crazy because they're like, oh my God, is he really coming here? Did he sign his paper? And like it's really just a bureaucracy on the back
Meanwhile,
end.
Like fax papers are flying into the air. People are trying to grab them out and make sure that it's signed. Someone forgot to put their signature on it, whatever. So that all being said, I know we're running really long, but if you're watching as a fan, I would say that your best bet is to good schools that do a good job of this actually have a web page signing day hub, which filters in all the information if they're doing a pretty good job, which includes tweets, highlight videos of particular kids, and all of their stats. So if you're trying to follow it, I would do it that way. And then also turn on social alerts for whatever kid, for your own team and whatever kids that you are expecting to come. And you will maybe notice a pattern between there's a couple kids who went to the same high school or that know each other from, other walks of life that are one of them drops off. Maybe be a little more worried about the other one, but it's always interesting now because I feel like they do travel in packs a little bit more at this particular point.
They travel in packs.
They do kind of. I mean, guys follow each other. It's more so in basketball just because basketball is so much small. It's more like that in basketball recruiting just because it's so small. But anyways, there's my insight. This is a really long podcast episode.
Yeah, but it's all good though. It's all good though. And you know what? We got more for all you great folks out there. So when we come back, Tom Luginbill of ESPN is going to join us right here on Fringe Element. Tom, welcome to the show, man. Good to see you. Always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
Hey, good to see you too, Braden, man. I appreciate you having me. Merry Christmas as well. Happy holidays, all of that good stuff.
Happy signing day, all that great stuff. Before we get into some of the specific team stories that I want to touch on broadly, sort of the transfer portal is out of control. We got Bo Nix and Zach Calzada and Spencer Rattler. There's like 15 different Power 5 schools with players in the portal. And obviously this is an SEC show, but in general, how has the portal and the super seniors, is it changing the way recruiting is taking place in our sport?
Big time. And it's damaging it, to be honest with you. This is an epidemic. It's a problem. We've created this path for free agency. Every coach in America now is dealing with a 85 to 100-man roster of free agents without knowing who's coming, who's going, when they may come, when they may go. And when it's all said and done, somebody's going to get squeezed out. And the person that's going to get squeezed out is the high school prospect. Because right now, it's harder than ever with the extra year of eligibility and the transfer portal. Generally, coaches kind of know their hard number. They know what they could bring in and count against this class. Maybe they know what they could do with gray shirts or blue shirts. But right now, they don't know. And so whether it's a sitting coaching staff or a new coaching staff that's scrambling right now, it's difficult to throw out committable offers when you actually don't know who may be leaving, who may be going. I mean, as of yesterday morning, do you think Jimbo Fisher had any clue that Zach Calzada was going to leave the university after being a starter for half or the majority of the season? And so it hits you like a ton of bricks. And I'll tell you, I know there's been a lot of discussion, Braden. Do we go back to a single signing period? Do we move back the first one to maybe the third weekend in January and then back up the second one to February? I'll tell you what I would really do is I would do two things that I think could help this. I would create windows throughout the calendar year where it is permissible to enter the transfer portal. And I would create those windows at times. One would be right after spring football because kids are going to know where they stand. And then one would be right after the season for maybe a 2-week period. But then I'd make the first month of December, or at least the first 3 weeks, a dead period for everybody so that the coaches can start to figure out who do we have, who do we not have. All right. Now you've helped out the new coaches and their new coaching staffs who are scrambling, and you could get to a more true number by actually knowing who's coming in the door, who's going out the door. I just think we got to try to do something to slow this thing down. We're not changing it. We're not putting the paste back into the tube, but we're at a point now where I don't know how any of these coaching staffs are managing these numbers because they don't know what their hard number is. And it's very difficult to recruit. And again, if you hold 4 or 5 scholarships back, for the transfer portal in the spring and the summer, that's 4 to 5 high school kids that aren't getting a scholarship, times that by 130 schools.
Yeah, and when the signing period is 10 or 12 days after the last game of the season, when everyone's firing and hiring coaches, it doesn't help.
Right.
It doesn't help the players knowing what's going on either. You mentioned Texas A&M, and they obviously are having an amazing season, have a chance to be the number 1 class in America. Jimbo Fisher has done this at Florida State, and now at Texas A&M, he's recreated it. Can this A&M team or Jimbo Fisher break the Kirby Smart, Nick Saban SEC ceiling, in your opinion?
Well, they're going to be close. They certainly have the resources to pull it off. There's no doubt about that. They don't have any hindrances as far as the acquisition of talent or building a roster. He's not handcuffed, he being Jimbo Fisher and their staff, in any way. Listen, I think this is a 3-horse race for the number 1 class in the country between Alabama, Georgia, and Texas A&M. Some way, shape, or form, those will fall at 1, 2, or 3. With Texas A&M, I think having the most to gain when you consider the likes of Harold Perkins, Denver Harris, Shamar Stewart, all of those players are top 25 composite players that all have Texas A&M in their final 2 or final 3. So they have the most ground where they could gain and actually end up with the number 1 class. And, we've gone back and we've kind of studied as it relates to the college football playoff. And we've looked at the 4 consecutive recruiting classes of all the college football playoff participants. And every single one, except for Michigan State, averaged a top 10 recruiting class in each one of those 4 cycles. So there is a correlation between college football playoff affiliation and having a top 5 or a top 10 class. Now, so if you're Texas A&M, this is definitely a good sign that you are now putting yourself in that position, because the history will tell you eventually you're going to break through. The problem is, Braden, and you know this, is the path to get to Atlanta is so difficult. You can't have any slip-ups. And you don't know who you may draw out of the East, in your cross rival on the other side. And so there's still challenges in front of you. And that's why, everybody's talking about Oklahoma and Texas jumping into the SEC. And okay, that's great. But you know what? How many times has Texas A&M sniffed Atlanta since 2011? One time. Once.
Yeah, they finished 5th in the nation one season. Doesn't matter. Alabama wins the national championship. They beat Alabama the next season. Doesn't matter. Alabama's number 1 in the nation going into the playoff. But it is interesting because Jimbo has put A&M now on a tier with Georgia and Alabama in terms of national recruiting. The question I have following that up is LSU and Florida expect to also be there competing for championships. Your thoughts on Brian Kelly's ability at LSU and Billy Napier's ability at Florida to sort of elevate those 2 programs into that same conversation we just had about the top 3?
Well, I think as it relates to LSU, to put it bluntly, I think Brian Kelly realized that in today's climate, you cannot win a national championship at Notre Dame. You might be able to get there, and he's gotten them there. But when you see them in the semifinals and you see the talent discrepancy, he knows there's a ceiling there. And there's an opportunity. He's almost 60 years old. If he's going to win a national championship, it's got to be at a place where you virtually have unlimited resources. You have no other Power 5 school in your state to compete with. There are unbelievably talented kids in every nook and cranny of that state. And then you border on Texas, and then it's easy to get to everywhere else in the Southeast. And so I just think that his approach, the proof in the pudding of his winning blueprint that has worked everywhere he has been, now you give him access to elite level players. There's just a lot of things that make sense there. I think it was not only a good hire, but a good move for him personally and professionally. Now, with Billy Napier, I think it's interesting because I had the Sun Belt Championship and we were talking about, finally making the move, and he had been considered for some other jobs. It just wasn't the right fit. But he said the reason this time, and I think this is really important, is instead of putting your toe in the water of competing with everybody else, Scott Strickland and the University of Florida are finally jumping into the deep end. They finally realized that, all right, there is still an arms race going on, right? You're one of the few Power 5 schools left in America that's considered to be a blue blood, or your coaching offices are still in the end zone of your stadium, right? So they're finally building a football operations facility that is going to be totally devoted to football. That's 20 years overdue, right? They just got an indoor facility just a few years back. That was 20 years overdue. And I think most importantly, and this is where Billy Napier is going to have an edge over, let's just say, Jim McElwain and anybody that served before him, is the staffing and the budget resources that are going to be afforded to the football operations side of things, I think are going to allow Florida to compete with the Alabamas, Georgias, Clemsons, Ohio States. Because make no mistake about it, it used to be, all right, if you're Miami, Florida, Florida State, you're all competing with each other in that state for the best players. Well, right now, none of those schools should be competing against each other. If you want to win a national championship, you're going to have to beat Georgia in recruiting. You have to beat Alabama, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State. Those other two teams aren't in the mix right now. So I think, with Florida, and you know this as well as anybody, and Billy Napier can throw a rock outside of his window in any direction and hit a great player within 100 miles. So that's a luxury. You add resources to that luxury, compiled with, I think, with his work ethic and the blueprint and the strategy is going to be very, very strong, then you might finally have the right recipe to compete on a national level for the college football playoff and potentially a national championship.
Kentucky, Mark Stoops, long time building this program. There's a reason why his class is among the best classes he's ever signed or potentially signing at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Eli Drinkwitz, we've seen sort of the recruiting momentum since the moment he showed up there in Columbia at Missouri. They have a potential to be a top 15 class. South Carolina, Shane Beamer was hired directly to do exactly what he's doing, and that doesn't include Spencer Rattler, of course. What do you make of those three schools overachieving? Is it real? Is it tangible? Is it stuff that's sustainable? What do you think about those three programs sort of overachieving in recruiting?
I think with Kentucky, we've proven that it's sustainable because as the wins have come, the facilities upgrades have come, the resources, the investment on behalf of the university has come, and you've seen patience from the administration to build, then reinvest, build, and then reinvest. And now look at what you have. I don't know if you've been on Lexington's campus, but what they've done in football is unbelievable. Well, when you start to win and people start to care, all of a sudden your greatest revenue producer, you can invest in it, and there's a reason to do it. I think Mark Stoops is the best program builder in all of college football right now. I think he's a great developer of talent, and they've built that thing into a program now where, he's sitting there on the cusp of a top 10 class, and it's real because when you get better and you get good, you're going to get the attention of top level players that you didn't have access to before. And so in that regard, I think he's done as good a job of anybody. With Missouri, the question of sustainability, to me, it happens to be a pretty strong state in the state of Missouri this year. So they're capitalizing on a good year and a good crop, which is important. Are you going to have that, though, each and every year? Probably not. You're going to have to go into everybody else's backyard to try and lure talent. But it helps if you play on the road at Georgia. It helps if you play on the road at Florida. Your brand gets expanded into a footprint. And those three little letters carry a lot of weight. I think they're going to finish with a top 10 class for us, Braden. I just think Eli Drinkwitz has really done a nice job, despite, mixed results on the field so far. But whatever they're doing in recruiting is resonating. And then on the flip side, I look at South Carolina, and I'm more impressed with how they were able to hold that thing together. I mean, they could have gotten a guy off the street and almost had to play quarterback. And get themselves competitive in a year where a lot of people thought they might be good enough to win 3 games. So you have the established relationship with Spencer Rattler. You bring him in, you now upgrade the quarterback position. And then from a recruiting standpoint, they've gone out and they've hit the ground running, and it's and they were doing it in what for the most part was a pandemic condemned recruiting cycle until the month of July last summer rolled around. Until that moment, you got a new coaching staff that couldn't have any contact face-to-face with any kids, couldn't go out on the road, kids couldn't come on campus. And I think that's also what has hurt Tennessee, because this year for Tennessee in the state is as good a year top to bottom as the state of Tennessee has ever had. And right now, Tennessee only has one verbal commitment. I don't think that's all on Josh Heupel. I think a lot of that is on getting behind because of the pandemic, not being able to get out on the road immediately. What they've inherited in the sense of perception and uncertainty as it relates to the NCAA investigation and not having an ending in sight yet. So now you got the negative recruiting tactics being used against you. I just think they've overcome to go 7-5 and to look at the teams they lost to, Braden. It's unbelievable. They lost to the team that won the ACC, the team that won the SEC, the team that followed runner-up in the SEC. I mean, they've really accomplished a lot, and we're prolific on offense. So I look at this class for 2022 at Tennessee, and on paper, it might look a little bit disappointing when you consider the strength of the in-state kids. But I can also make an argument that in 2023, this class in the state of Tennessee is going to be magnificent. And that is where Tennessee has to rebound, because now there won't be any COVID excuses. You're coming off of a potential bowl win if you beat Purdue in the bowl game, and you're going to go into the offseason and be able to have junior days, be able to get on the road, be able to get kids on campus. And, if you have great players in that state, you can't let them go, because you don't have enough to build an 85-man roster just in that state. You have to go into everybody's backyard. So to alleviate that challenge, sign the best ones that are at home.
Biggest SEC storyline coming out of National Signing Day will be what?
To me, I think if Texas A&M signs those three players I mentioned, Denver Harris, Shamar Stewart, and Harold Perkins, and if they do that, I don't think there's any question they go to a composite number 1 overall class. I think that will be the storyline coming out. And to be honest with you, listen, that was a disappointing year on the field. I mean, they beat Alabama, but for their roster and the places they want to go, I know their quarterback got hurt and things of that nature, but we all know 8-4 is not good enough. And so they need classes like this on consecutive levels to get into that, 10, 11 win march and have a chance to go to Atlanta.
Do you miss all the, I know I do. I understand why it's disappeared, because it's bad for the brand for everybody, but do you miss all the signing day nonsense? Like it seems like the athlete, the coach, the school, the parent, now it's like the agent probably too. They all realized that all this ridiculousness on signing day was probably bad for the brand. But I do sort of miss 2008 vibes and energy from National Signing Day.
Yeah. I do too. I mean, listen, I'll be the first one to tell you, we invested a ton of resources from a television production standpoint. When you put together for what was almost 12 years of an 11 or 12-hour live show straight through all day long with, 15 coaches across the country, 10 to 12 verbal commitments, just the constant, almost like it's election style coverage. And you got all these moving parts. And then all of a sudden it just goes away, and you've taken away the hoopla, you've taken away the excitement. That, to be honest with you, that's a college football / recruiting fans Super Bowl. And now we've diminished it with the early signing period. And we all know that there's going to be unintended consequences that came with this. But I also think that there were things that came with this that everybody could have seen from a mile away, but just chose to ignore. And now you can't put the pace back in the tube. And I mean, look, we're doing 2 hours tomorrow as a show where, so you go from 12 hours on one day to doing 2 hours in the early signing period, and, a couple of hits here and there with SportsCenter and some other outlets, but it's not the same as it used to be. So yeah, I do miss that, because I think it adds a lot to college football.
And I know Isaiah Crowell holding up a bulldog puppy, and no Floyd, Floyd Raven's mom forging a signature, and Alex Collins' parents absconding with the letter of intent and
down the freeway.
Yeah, it used to be so great. Tom, always a pleasure, man. Everybody check him out, of course, all over the TV, the internets, the Twitters. You got all kinds of stuff going for National Signing Day, so ESPN.com is your place, and ESPN Television as well. Tom, always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
You bet, Braden. Thank you.
That was Tom Luginbill, of course, giving you guys some broad strokes information about recruiting in the SEC. Hope you guys all enjoy National Signing Day. Aaron, I know it was a crazy day for you for a long time, and your career is a crazy day for me. I am so glad that I don't have to do anything anymore on National Signing Day. I do enjoy the content now, but my God, it was a crazy day. When I worked at Rivals and at Athlon, it was serious. We would do 6 hours, 7 hours of radio in a day. It's just nuts. And you heard Luginbill talk about it. They used to do 12 hours of TV at ESPN. Now they do 2. So it's just a different beast altogether. But but still very important. Aaron, Fringe Element is brought to you by.
Fringe Element is brought to you by Jasper's. A good reason to let your hair down, and this is not going well.
Pick a college coach to play football for.
Jasper's, a good reason to enter the transfer portal from other shitty restaurants back to Jasper's. Thank God you don't have to transfer officially to stop eating bad food. Come to Jaspers.
I'm sorry I stepped on that. That just continued to get better and better. So I apologize. Everybody go to Jaspers, everybody. You can follow her on Twitter, Erin Dugan, at the Erin Dugan, at Erin _Dugan on Instagram. You can follow me at Braden Gall, at 38 Godfrey as well. Special thanks to Tom Luginbill. Enjoy National Signing Day, everybody.
And to my homies that gave me signing day help and insight, which would be Q, Chili, and Aaron Atkins. Shout out to them for like reminding me of the chaos.
All good people, all good shouts. Please share the product. Thank you guys all for listening. This has been Fringe Element here on the 440 Sports Network.
Peace.